In January 2021, Barnhart Crane and Rigging was approached by our client who was preparing to ship 2 generator stators from Norfolk, Virginia to Edson, Alberta, Canada. Prior to them reaching out, the client was able to secure rail clearance to transport the stators by rail from Duluth, Minnesota to Edson, Alberta. Because of this, Barnhart was contracted to roll the stators onto a barge in Norfolk, barge the stators to Duluth, and then transload the stators onto the rail cars. Shortly after this initial contact, the Canadian rail owner canceled all pre-approved rail clearances from Duluth to Edson due to weight restrictions on the Canadian rail system. Upon this cancellation, the client contacted Barnhart as well as a local Canadian heavy hauler and rigger to perform 2 independent feed studies to determine over-the-road transport feasibility from Sweetgrass, Montana to Edson, Alberta. These feed studies included a route survey from Sweetgrass, Montana to the project site as well as preliminary permit submittals. 2 major parts of a route survey are bridge analysis and pavement analysis. A major hurdle Barnhart recognized early on was the crossing of bridges. We commissioned an engineering study for the 31 bridges along the entire route. For the engineering study, Barnhart looked at 2 transport options to determine the best transporter style for the haul. The first option utilized Barnhart's one-of-a-kind 24-dolly transporter. The 24-dolly transporter had never been used in Canada before. The second option was 3 file platform trailers and suspension girders. In the past, Alberta had allowed different companies permission to haul using the platform trailers and suspension girders. This was the style chosen by our Canadian competitor. The initial results of this bridge analysis comparison between the 2 transporters proved that the platform trailers and suspension girders would fail multiple bridges and had low ratings for others, while the Barnhart 24-dolly transporter had 0 bridge failures and higher ratings for all other structures. Although the dolly transporter handily passed the bridge analysis, the pavement engineers at Alberta Ministry of Transportation had concerns because the Barnhart dolly transporter did not meet pre-approved Alberta axle spacings. To utilize the Barnhart-designed transporter, Barnhart learned that we would have to perform an academic-style pavement analysis. We worked closely with the authors of this analysis to determine the cost of implementation for this inspection protocol. It was determined that to complete the procedure would take a minimum of 6 months at an unknown expense to our client, exceeding hundreds of thousands of dollars. The other transporter was not required to perform this engineering study because the axle spacing was pre-approved for the pavement analysis despite the vehicle weight. Although the platform trailer style did not pass the bridge analysis, the Canadian consultant was confident this transporter could be made to work using a refined analysis and assumptions that Alberta Ministry of Transportation had approved in the past for similar transports. As a result, the client decided to go with our local Canadian competitor. As Barnhart's offer was more expensive, required long-distance mobilization from the United States, and would require a major pavement study that could last months with an unknown expense, Barnhart was retained for the U.S. barge leg of the project. In December 2021, Barnhart delivered the stators through the St. Lawrence Seaway and across the Great Lakes. After rolling the stators off the barge, we loaded the stators onto our client's rail cars. This concluded Barnhart's contract. Our team demobilized from Duluth in time for the Christmas holidays and began to focus on other projects. However, in January 2022, roughly 20 days after Barnhart demobilized, the client contacted Barnhart asking how quickly we could mobilize equipment and people into Alberta. The Barnhart team was shocked. We had been closely watching the progress of the Canadian heavy hauler, and we thought the transport was underway because frost laws and road restrictions were set to begin in the next 8 weeks. These frost laws are seasonal restrictions on traffic weight limits and speeds on roadways subject to thaw weakening. Barnhart learned that the Alberta Ministry of Transportation began to call into question some of the previous precedents that had been established regarding the platform trailers bridge analysis. Alberta Transportation Bridge engineers remembered there was an alternative method that was proposed during the initial bid process, the Barnhart Dolly Transporter. Upon comparison of the bridge analysis, The Barnhart dolly system had a gross weight of 1,490,800 pounds versus the platform-style system, which had a gross weight of 1,999,740 pounds. Because the dolly system was 508,940 pounds lighter than the platform-style system, the Alberta Ministry of Transportation bridge engineers denied the permit for the platform-style system to cross Canadian bridges. Since Barnhart's initial feed study was completed 1 year prior, the client had also secured rail clearance all the way to Elk Island, Alberta, near Edmonton. Barnhart was now requested by the client to begin verifying their plan and price to deliver two 850,000-pound stators from Elk Island, Alberta to Edson, Alberta before the frost laws began sometime in March. Typically, these road bans are implemented sometime around March and April and can last as long as July. This gave Barnhart just 6 weeks to get their crews and equipment into a different country, set up the equipment, work with Alberta Transportation to finalize all bridge analysis and reviews, and solve the pavement analysis issues. In addition, Barnhart received an exemption to cabotage law since the only Canadian company was refused a permit by Alberta Transportation. Cabotage law forbids movements by foreign carriers between two domestic points. With time against us, we raced to get the stators delivered before the warmer air arrived in March. After negotiating their revised commercial offer, Barnhart immediately prepared to mobilize crew and equipment 2,050 miles from Memphis, Tennessee to Elk Island, Alberta.
February 22nd is when we got the notice to start moving things towards Canada. And we were on site in roughly 2 weeks. March the 7th was our first day on site with manpower and equipment starting to show up. From there, we had to learn all customs clearance, border crossings. With the COVID pandemic going on, entry into Canada and Canada requirements for our personnel to get into country was also a challenge.
The COVID pandemic and restrictions were also still in effect in Canada. In addition, the Freedom Convoy protest, a national truckers' strike aimed at a COVID-19 vaccine mandate for cross-border truckers, shut down many border crossings. Many U.S. truckers were reluctant to cross the border during this time frame, severely complicating the expedited mobilization plans. Alberta Transportation gave authorization to haul if we started the haul prior to the road bans coming into effect. With time being of the essence, Barnhart called upon our more than 50 branch network to utilize qualified Barnhart employees who had or could get a passport and travel, as well as meet the COVID qualifications to enter Canada. Soon it was determined that frost laws would be implemented on March 19th. Barnhart was able to begin moving the first stator the 270 miles to the destination on March 18th. To satisfy the pavement analysis complication, Barnhart negotiated a plan which included a pre-inspection pavement study before and after each haul, as well as a requirement to weigh each transporter 2 separate times during the transport route. A team of 5 engineers who traveled with the transporter inspected 93 individual 50-meter sections along the route. Barnhart delivered the first stator in 5 hauling shifts. After offload, Barnhart hauled the empty dolly transporter 270 miles back to Elk Island and began the process of loading the second stator. However, Barnhart then faced the next stumbling block. How would they transport the second stator after road bans had been enacted? Would it be allowed? After considerable deliberations involving Barnhart, the client, the utility owner, bridge and pavement consultants, Alberta Transportation granted Barnhart a waiver to proceed with the second stator transportation under certain conditions. Namely, more detailed inspections of pavement before and after the transport, including an entire survey of the route before the second transporter began. Pavement engineers evaluating the haul route had broken it up into low, medium, and high-risk areas, then performed contingency mitigation plans for medium and high-risk pavement segments. Additionally, a $10 million road bond was required, as well as a non-refundable $500,000 fee to allow Alberta Ministry of Transportation the ability to begin fixing any pavement damage that might occur. Barnhart began the second transport 30 days after the first haul. Once again, Barnhart was able to deliver the second stator to the project site on time and with 0 incidents. Once the stator was offloaded, the Barnhart dolly transporter was demobilized to its home in the United States. As demobilization commenced, the pavement engineers continued the post-haul route evaluation procedure. After weeks of data compilation, review, and analysis, it was determined that the Barnhart dolly system created little to no discernible damage to the pavement of the transporter route.
The fact that Barnhart was put into a position where we had to execute the entire project development, engineering, finalize engineering, develop a new pavement inspection paradigm that never been done before, mobilize 20 truckloads of equipment, 20 crew during the Omicron crisis, during a trucking shutdown, and get everybody passported and ready to go with no criminal background checks in the matter of 2 weeks after we were awarded is monumental. And then to be hauling within 2 weeks of that deployment is record-breaking. It's never been done before. And the fact that the project was completed safely, as on time as possible, and on budget that we presented without any issues, it was actually it was executed better than any of our stakeholders expected. Barnhart knew we could do it. We knew we could do it. Nobody else thought we could do it. And that's truly where Barnhart shines the most. When the odds are against us, we knock it out of the park.
Barnhart's motto, "Minds over matter," exemplifies our response to this particular project. From the initial bidding process, Barnhart realized that this was going to take some serious problem-solving abilities. Utilizing our dolly transporter, we were able to transport 2 850,000-pound generator stators 270 miles both before and after frost law restrictions were enacted. This was done with considerable effort from engineering and following the requirements from Alberta Transportation. The low tear rate of the Barnhart dolly transporter significantly improved bridge rating and dramatically reduced risk of impacts on the bridge structures. Although Barnhart had to rapidly deploy for this project, we were prepared due to prior initial route planning and consulting with local experts. Barnhart identified all primary and secondary stopping points along the route and surveyed the entire route multiple times to ensure clear passage below and around obstacles. We were in constant communication with all provincial and local authorities during all movements and partnered with local professional heavy haulers to provide redundant equipment for the transport. The generator stator dimensions were 39 feet long, 15 feet 4 inches wide, and 15 feet 8 inches tall. Each generator stator weighed 845,000 pounds. Barnhart's final permitted transport was 236 feet and 5 inches long, 20 feet and 4 inches wide, and 18 feet 8 inches tall with a gross weight of 1,336,603 pounds. All operations performed in the field start with a job hazard analysis and are governed by Barnhart's standard operating procedures. This detailed planning and implementation resulted in a project which had no citations, first aids, or recordables, and was delivered on time and under budget. The Barnhart team is proud to present this project for your consideration. Thank you.